All right, welcome everyone to the Church Web People discussion hangout on air live thing. This is episode 1 where we're going to talk about a few of our favorite things. I'm David Needham, and we also have Dale here.
Hi everybody. David, why don't you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I am the executive director of Enjoy Creativity. We're a small nonprofit that helps churches and ministries all over the world with various things on the web. I've been a big fan of web and kind of technology, techno geek, I guess, for quite a while now. And I'm excited to talk a little bit about some of the tools that make my job a little bit easier today.
All right.
How about you?
I'm Pastor Dale Kirchley. I'm pastor at St. James Lutheran Church in West St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm specifically focused on children or youth, family, and evangelism. Part of that involves being the church webmaster, and I've just been involved in a lot of online stuff, social media, building websites, all kinds of stuff like that for a long time. And so this kind of fits right into my niche. So.
Yeah, thank you for agreeing to co-host today, Dale. Yes, so a little bit of history. This group started as the Twin Cities Church Web People. It started based on an unconference we ran almost exactly a year ago. We're a little over a year old now. And after doing it for about a year, I was moving out of the Twin Cities, and we had some trouble like scheduling, finding the right time, getting enough people there. So we thought we'd move it online. We'd do a hangout. We'd kind of move to Google Groups and Slack and kind of do as much as we can online, take it out of just the Twin Cities and make it as accessible as possible. So this is our first attempt at doing this. We'll see how it goes. Disclaimer though, both Dale and I have had some internet issues today, so it's quite possible one of us might drop off at some point. If that happens, we'll try to push through and see how it turns out. But hopefully in the future, future episodes will be significantly better.
Yeah, it's one of those things that the more you do it, the more you are able to fix things. And looks like David's already frozen. So those problems we were talking about.
Yep.
So if you're watching this either live or after the fact, just hang in there with us and be patient.
Yeah, and feedback is always welcome. So if you like something we're saying today, or if you don't like something we're saying, definitely join us on churchwebpeople.com, where you can join the Google group and leave some comments on this particular episode. It's also possible for you to leave comments on the YouTube channel or the, I guess the Google Plus channel or the YouTube page or whatever it's called. And then leave comments, let us know how we're doing and what things we can improve or if we should try something different.
Anybody that happens to be watching this live right now, which I don't know that anybody is, but there is a Q&A component to Google Hangouts where you could ask questions as we go.
Yeah, well, what do you say? Shall we kick it off?
Yeah, let's get started.
All right. So here we go. So we're going to jump right into our favorite tools. These are in no particular order. We just kind of did a poll among Pastor Dale, myself, Josh Bertolamucci, Nick, and anyone else who might have contributed in the Slack channel and kind of collaborate on some ideas. Like I said, these are in no particular order, but the first one we want.
In no particular category either.
That's right.
So this is completely random. We're just kind of starting out with just some of our favorite tools, period.
That's right. That's a good point. So the first one we have on the list here is Slack. We started using Slack almost immediately after we moved, transitioned online for this group, primarily because it would give us a place to questions and meet other people.
Yep. And, it has advantages and disadvantages over other things. It's mainly the idea with Slack is that everything is all together in one space. And it kind of reminds me, I was describing it to somebody and I was trying to think of a way to describe it. I said, remember ICQ?
Mm-hmm.
And, AOL Instant Messenger and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like that, except with a whole bunch of, you can add files and, and links. You post a link and it kind of shows up like on Facebook, where it gives you a little preview of it and stuff like
Right.
that. So it's that kind of thing, and then it also has channels, like for those of you who know what IRC is, it's kind of like that, but you have channels within each of your groups, separate channels. It'd be kind of like in forums, where you have different forums for different categories or different topics and things like that.
Yeah, when we first started using it at Enjoy Creativity, I was admittedly a little skeptical because it seemed a lot like IRC. We already had an IRC channel at that time, and no one was really using it. We had Google Talk, we had email, like things were kind of okay, but lots of people were talking about Slack, so we thought we'd give it a try. And then one interesting I noticed after the fact was that the team didn't really send as many emails to each other. We didn't send as many instant messages on, Google Talk or any of those things. We weren't on IRC as much anymore. We pretty much talked exclusively through Slack, and it kind of happened naturally, which was unexpected. But it makes it much easier to find the things that we're looking for if we're talking about something.
I've started after I was introduced to it. I started showing it to our office secretary, and she and I are definitely, of our staff, the two most technologically comfortable. And not that the others aren't; it's just degrees. And I was looking for a way where if I could just send her a quick message about something and not have to, this sounds ridiculous, but writing an email is a long, drawn out process.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to come up with a subject line and all this kind of stuff. And whereas with Slack, I could just pull it up, fire off a quick note to her, and then it was saved, so you can easily refer back to it and things like that. And I didn't want to send her texts on her personal cell phone or anything like that. And so, like, oh, this is a really easy way for us to just message back and forth quickly and have record of everything, be able to refer back to things and stuff like that.
Yeah, and one of the things I really like about it is if you have someone else join Slack, like say in your example, someone else join down the road. If you have a discussion about a particular program at the church or something like that, they would be able to see your discussion on that topic, going back over time. So
Right.
They wouldn't just be joining, kind of wondering what to do. They could look back and see what's been talked about, or search for what's been talked about.
Yeah, and it has a private messaging component. But then where you can send stuff to individual people, but then there's also the public areas. So yeah, as we bring other staff members in, as the two of us become comfortable with it and stuff, and discuss what uses it'll have. I don't see it completely replacing email for us, because we've got all kinds of volunteers and stuff that aren't on Slack, but I can definitely see it just being a place for just quick messages back and forth. Oh, hey, don't forget about this, or hey, what do you think about that? So
Yeah, definitely. Well, let's move on to number 2, or not any number, to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Google Apps. When I was trying to think about my favorite apps, I kept coming up, and I know Pastor Dale shared this in Slack, like, and there's Drive, and then, wait a minute, all of those are kind of tied up within Google Apps.
Yeah, so this is like a whole nother episode, is Google Apps. So we're not going to spend a lot of time on it now.
Yeah, definitely. In fact, in person, I gave...
I'm breaking up again.
Where we Google Apps for nonprofit account. So if you're a nonprofit, if you're a church, 501c3, you can actually get Google Apps for free. And if you are not, then I think it's $10 per person on the program. But basically, it gives you a Google account that's at your domain, and then you can take advantage of all of the things that you're used to using Google for, just with your own company email address, basically.
And specifically for churches, things like being able to collaborate on calendar, share files, the photos. We have a photo server here, and it's full of photos, but there's no organization or anything to it. Google Photos has face recognition and all kinds of stuff. It groups things really nicely, just automatically. And
Sorry, Pastor Dale, could you just take a step back? You cut out there for a second.
Okay, Google Photos. It has face recognition, all kinds of stuff. You can just tell it any new photos that are added to this server, or this folder, or whatever, just automatically upload them and add them to the collection. And it really automates a lot of stuff.
Cool. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to use that yet, but that sounds really helpful.
Only drawback of it is it doesn't really have, like, you can't name the pictures. But it does video too. So that's a big advantage. But yeah, it's like, check it out. And Google apps for nonprofits used to be restricted. Churches couldn't use it. But then they opened it up for churches. It's also YouTube for nonprofits is also included.
That's right. Yeah, and as well as $10,000 in Google AdWords advertising for free. I think.
Yeah.
Per month. Yeah. Yeah. So if you're a nonprofit, it's definitely a huge benefit. Definitely worth signing up for.
Anybody figures out how to use all of it every month, let us know, because we're trying to figure it out.
Exactly. Cool. Well, let's keep it moving. So Next one, we have Wunderlist. How long have you been using Wunderlist for?
I've only been using Wunderlist for a few months. I've been watching it for years. And I loved it. I tried it out a few times, but up until fairly recently, it didn't have, you couldn't sort, it's a to-do list app, right? And you couldn't sort by date due. And so for a to-do list that you couldn't sort by date due, that's a deal breaker right there.
Right. Yeah. But, no, I feel like I'm in a similar boat because I had been watching it for a while and I'd seen it, but tried something else and kind of went the simple note route for like list taking and sharing. But I was recently turned on to it by, I think, kind of walked me through how he's using it at a ministry. Task, for keeping track of projects. And then I mentioned we recently moved, so when we had to come up with a list of things to do on the house or to buy, at the grocery store or whatever, I just kind of jumped in and installed it on my wife's phone and my phone, and we've been collaborating ever since.
Yeah. And I don't even know who you're hearing right now. If it's me or David or.
I think you cut out there for a moment. What'd you say?
Yeah. All right. Hopefully you can hear me now. It's multi-platform. You can put it on pretty much anything. I used to use an app called Astrid, and that got bought out by Yahoo, and it was really great. They bought it and killed it, and so I switched over to Wrike, W-R-I-K-E, but it was kind of clunky. And so that's what got me back to Wunderlist. Okay. And, yeah, my wife and I use it for just like household tasks that need to be done. I keep personal lists. I also use it for my annual goals, things that I want to accomplish this year. And then like I have a shared group for our youth ministry team. So that we collaborate, and then you can assign things to different people and collaborate on comments within it. It's just really useful, and it's, unless you're using it really hardcore, it's free.
Yeah, and something that Josh is doing, I think, or something he recommended, was that you can actually, if the person who's creating the tasks is not on the free plan, he can still delegate tasks to people who are on the free plan and let them take advantage of what they have going on. So he can, for example, if he has contractors or something like that, he can have the non-free plan to take advantage of the premium services or features. And then, everyone else can take advantage of it too, just by including them in his group. Cool. Well, let's move on to the next one. Yep. Next, we have Pushbullet. I've been using Pushbullet for probably at least a year now. And when I first started using it, it was because I wanted to send a file from my Chrome browser to my phone. And there's all sorts of ways to do that, but this is one I came across, and when I jumped in, it's been super handy for that task, as well as sending things from one device to the other to anywhere I want it to go.
Yeah, and that's basically it. I think I was trying to send something kind of instantaneously from my Mac to my phone or something like that. And that's really what Pushbullet is all about. You can do it not just to your devices, but to anybody else that that also has Pushbullet. You can send stuff back and forth. One of the features that I kind of like with the Chrome plugin is that if I'm looking at something on my phone and I want to look at it in Chrome on a laptop, I can just send it to Chrome and it automatically opens it in Chrome on that other one. So I can be at home and say, oh, when I get to work, I want to look at this, and send it to Chrome. And when I get here, it'll be sitting there waiting for me.
Yep. No, I totally forgot that feature. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Like even if your computer that has Chrome on it is closed, this is something I love. Like just like you said, if I'm on my phone or something, I want to queue up stuff to look at when I'm on my computer later. You can send them to your Chrome, and then when you actually open the computer, all these windows will pop up for things you wanted to look at later. And yeah, extremely helpful.
Yep. And it's I think less useful, but it has channel subscriptions to certain things. A lot of it's kind of fluff, but take a look at the subscriptions, and that'll just give you notifications of different things to let you know when there's new content in various places.
Cool. Great. Let's move on. So next up we have HootSuite. I've been using HootSuite for quite a long time, several years, I think. Only the last year, though, or maybe a year or two, really actively. It is at its core a place to add all of your social networks and then post to all of them at the same time, or based on some sort of a pattern or a schedule or something like that. So we use it at Enjoy Creativity to automatically post to our LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all over on a schedule. So if we have things we want to say, we can kind of type them in and kind of queue them up, and then they automatically go out every day or every other day, or kind of whatever we want it to do.
Yeah, and it has automatic scheduling where you can kind of just space these things out for me. I can't remember when I'm doing what. But then you can also say, well, I want to schedule this right before this big event or something like that, and get that all set to go. Now there's a caveat with that, and that's Facebook. That if you don't actually add things specifically to Facebook in Facebook, not as many people will see it. Just because of the way that Facebook does things. They really want you in their app so you see their ads and all that kind of stuff. And so it'll kind of get filtered, and you'll notice if you post the same exact thing with something like HootSuite or really anything else versus actually going into Facebook and posting it, you'll see a big difference between how many people see it unless you pay to boost the post.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
But that's pretty much just Facebook that does that I know of.
Yeah, that's all I've heard of too. Yeah, I think it's great in those situations where you worry about if you're over tweeting. Like I used it personally before I used it for Enjoy Creativity, because I felt like there was a point where I just wanted to, like, oh, this is a really cool link, and oh, I want to share this, and oh, I had this cool thought, and I felt like I was, all of my tweets were happening. I do half a dozen tweets in 30 minutes or something, and I wanted to spread them out a little bit, make them come not so frequently. So putting all of these things in one place and then letting them go out on a schedule made that a little more consistent for me. But I think Buffer and some of the other examples or alternatives that you've listed here are great alternatives to HootSuite as well.
Yeah. Every post, a lot of I encourage anybody to compare them, and there's more than the ones that are listed. Different ones can do different things, connect with different social networks and things like that. I think every post in Buffer are probably the bigger ones. Sprout Social is more powerful, but it's also a lot more expensive. So you definitely want to compare the prices of the different ones and figure out which ones were going to work best for you. I found that if you're considering a few of them, if you just Google, like HootSuite versus every post versus Buffer or something like that, you'll get some really nice comparison blogs and things like that out there that can show you the difference. Now, the other one that's mentioned there is IFTTT and Zapier and some of those. And what those are is they're not exactly the same. What they do is they will automatically take content that you do in one place and send it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And they're actually a lot more powerful. We could probably do an entire episode just on those things. But
yeah.
it's the sort of thing, like, for instance, today on my way back to work for lunch, I was listening to a podcast and I heard a book mentioned, and I thought, oh, I want to make sure to add that book to my Goodreads want to read list. Okay, so I have on my Pebble Watch, I have a app that allows me to use voice to post to Evernote. All right, I don't mainly use Evernote. I mainly use Google Drive, but the Evernote thing that I created on my watch used Zapier, I think, to send it automatically to create a Google Doc, and then it's there in Google Docs now. And then I'll remember, oh yeah, I need to add that to Goodreads, and I just haven't done that yet.
Wow, that's a great example, but also a pretty long and drawn out example.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. I've been guilty of that too with if so it's if this then that is IFTTT, and it's the shorthand. But yeah, I've done exactly the same thing where, you know, I also have a Pebble Watch, and sometimes you have to do some little hacky things like that to get it to do what you want to do. But hey, it's nice.
Some of the simpler things you do with IFTTTs and Zapier is stuff like if you have home automation stuff, like on your lights and things like that, you can have, when I leave the house, turn all my lights off.
Mm-hmm.
And where it's tied in, like, say, with the GPS on your phone or something like that. So there's some really cool stuff you can do. Even weird things like get a notification every time an astronaut goes into space.
Right. Yep.
So.
Yeah, those are definitely worth checking out too. In fact, I think we have Zapier in a later slide. So let's keep moving. Dropler. Have you used Dropler before?
I have not, so I'm curious about it.
Okay, so Dropler is, I haven't used it extensively, but I've been hopping between all sorts of apps that do very similar things. If you have a situation where you want to take a quick screenshot of what you have on your screen and then share it with someone, share the link to someone. This lets you do that with a single key command, or by clicking a link or a button. You just kind of draw out, or you make a screenshot, and then it automatically uploads that and then pastes or puts into your clipboard a link that you can share with people. It lets you do that with graphics, with anything you're looking at, with video. Even I think this one will let you even do code snippets that has formatting for you.
Yeah, I've used Cloud App before, so it's basically the same.
Yeah. It's very similar. This was actually one that Josh was very much in favor of, and I've used it before and I've liked it. If he was here, he could probably tell you more extensively what is best about it, but we can save that for some other time.
Yep.
Okay, next up we have Dropbox. I've been using Dropbox for a very long time also, but I think the thing the real feature of Dropbox is that it is so everywhere. Like everyone I know, most everyone I know, even my mom has a Dropbox account for backing up photos from their phone. Most people I know in business, if they want to share a bunch of files for something, they say, "Oh, I'll share you on Dropbox," or something like that. And then most services that you have probably have some sort of integration with Dropbox for keeping track of your PDFs or your whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's it's just a simple way to share files back and forth with people. There's just tons of alternatives out there.
Mm-hmm.
And some of just a few Cloud there. That was Cloud App that I was thinking of. It's not exactly the same, but Google Drive, I think, is very comparable to Dropbox. Google Drive has the advantage that, for instance, when we were putting together this what do you call it, the slide thing
Mm-hmm.
for today,
Yep.
David and I were working on it both at the same time. We could see what each other were doing, things like that. It's great for Google Docs. I love shared, working on the same file at the same time, things like that. Box is another one. if for Microsoft 365 or Office 365 users, SharePoint and OneDrive are out there. OneDrive, I think anybody can use. SharePoint, you have to have a 365 subscription. iCloud is Apple's version, which my wife really likes. She uses it with their photo thing, and it just automates moving things back and forth really easily if you're an all Apple person, which she is. So
cool. Well, let's keep on going. So next up, we have TeamViewer. I think it's likely you've used TeamViewer more than I have.
Yeah, well, this is something actually of all people, my mother introduced me to this one because she's a Windows person and my brother and I are both Mac people. And so my cousin actually does her tech support for her. Okay. And this just allows him to take control of her computer when she's having a problem and fix things for her. So what I use it for is I normally use a Mac, but there's one app that I need Windows for. Mm-hmm. And so I have a little 7-inch Windows tablet. And then I use TeamViewer to just pull up that tablet on my Mac so I can just use my regular keyboard and mouse and things like that with it. And it just, and the tablet just sits on my windowsill. And nice.
Yeah, I had a similar situation with my mom where, she got a computer and needed support, but I was on my way off to college. And at that point I had used Log Me In. Log Me In back then had a free version, and it worked really well for many, many years, but I think somewhat recently they phased it out.
So TeamViewer is free for personal use. You have to pay for organizational use. I'm just using it for personal use. But yeah, if you're using it, for your whole church or something like that, or your church's tech support guys using it, then you have to pay. And Chrome Viewer is a Chrome plugin that allows you to do basically the same thing.
All right.
But if you don't want to be your parents' tech support person, don't tell them about it.
Right. Okay. Well, we're almost out of time, so let's kind of breeze through. Next one we have is Photoshop. So I've been using Photoshop for a long time too. Of course, most everyone knows what Photoshop is, but Dale was telling me about the difference between Photoshop and Elements. Yep.
All right. So Photoshop Elements is the consumer version of Photoshop. It's much cheaper, like probably around $100 or less. Cool. I actually got my first copy with as a bundle with a scanner. Nice. And it can do just about anything you want to do. You can use filters and all that kind of stuff. If you're a professional, you're going to need the full version. But then there's also Express, which is like the mobile version, which is basically just like for cropping and red eye and stuff like that.
Right.
Just want to mention, fairly recently, Adobe added a Creative Cloud plan, which allows you to use like their whole suite of apps, and it's a subscription-based thing, sort of like Microsoft's Office 365 subscription. And so if you're interested in having it for multiple people and always having the latest version and stuff like that, check that out. There's definitely a pretty big cost to it, though.
Cool. Yeah, and that's it. That's our 9 favorite apps right now. And here's a few of our honorable mentions. Clip Menu is one that I really like for having multiple kind of a clipboard that goes on for pages and pages. You can clip through and see what your clipboard actually has in it, and then reuse things that you've used before. Flux is one that I really like for late night when I'm on my computer. It'll actually, over time, as the sun goes down, it'll make your screen turn more red. It kind of make the blue go out so it doesn't hurt your eyes, and makes it so you can see more naturally in the dark. FreshBooks is one that was also really popular in Slack, and it basically lets us easily create invoices and track time for invoicing clients or whomever else we need to send invoices to for donations or whatnot. And then we already mentioned If This and That and Zapier, but it's also one that we could spend a whole episode talking about, I think. And then do you want to share a little bit about ScreenFlow?
Well, ScreenFlow is a screen capture software that will allow you to record what's going on. What I use it for is if there's like a webinar that I'm not going to be able to just sit there and watch it. I can use ScreenFlow and just set my computer to record it. And even though it's live streaming, and then it'll just after the fact, I can save it, export it, and then use it wherever, or watch it, convert it to an MP3, listen to it in the car, whatever. So
very cool. Yep, and then so that's it for today. Next month we're going to do a talk about donation and tithing services and kind of compare the ones we've used and what we've researched. It'll be on February 22nd at 3 p.m. So it'll be kind of the same sort of situation. Join us on churchwebpeople.com to discuss the topic in advance and you see what we're talking about there. We have all sorts of discussions about various topical tools that churches are using, and we'll discuss those in future episodes. So hit us up on, like I said, churchwebpeople.com, and join us on Google Groups and Slack.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yep, thank you all.
Leave a comment. Let us know what you think.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.